Sawadee-kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, and we're studying the words of the Buddha. This is a program where I invite students in Zoom to be able to read a chapter from our book series. Then I'm going to share some teachings on that. Then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you might have. Whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you're welcome to ask questions during the class by just putting those into the comment section. And if you're in Zoom, you can ask questions by electronically raising your hand, unmuting your microphone, and asking any and all questions that you like. Where many of the programs that I share, I'm teaching for 15, 20, 30 minutes and then opening up for questions. And then I teach some more and open up for questions. This program is more of a study group, and students have typically read either before class or after class in order to be able to help them to be able to understand the words of the Buddha. And they've typically already learned the teachings in a foundational program before they've actually entered into this particular program, because this program helps to really fill in the framework to be able to help you understand the path to enlightenment based on the original words of the Buddha. So I'd like to welcome everybody, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly. And at the same time, I'd like to invite anybody who's in Zoom to be able to volunteer to read these chapters. And I'll show you guys how our program works, where we gradually read, and then I share some teachings, and then I'll open up for questions. So is there anyone in Zoom who would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? All right, surprise, surprise, it's Mr. Pat. All right, go ahead, sir.
Sorry, Samantha. A strong post or pillar is a designation of mindfulness. And how, monks, is there restraint? Here, having seen a form with the eye, having heard a sound with the ear, having smelt an odor with the nose, having tasted a flavor with the tongue, having touched a physical object with the body, having recognized a mental object with the mind, the monk is not intent upon a pleasing form and not repelled by a displeasing form. He resides having set up mindfulness of the body with the measureless mind, and he understands as it really is that liberation of mind, liberation by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states are eliminated without remainder. It is in such a way that there is restraint. Suppose, monks, a man would catch 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds, and tie them by a strong rope. He would catch a snake, a crocodile, a bird, a dog, a jackal, and monkey, and tie each by a strong rope. Having done so, he would bind them to a strong post or pillar. Then those 6 animals with different domains and different feeding grounds would each pull in the direction of its own feeding ground and domain. The snake would pull one way, thinking, "Let me enter an anthill." The crocodile would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter the water." The bird would pull another way, thinking, "Let me fly up into the sky." The dog would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a village." The jackal would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a charnel ground." The monkey would pull another way, thinking, "Let me enter a forest." Now, when these 6 animals become worn out and fatigued, they would stand close to that post or pillar. They would sit down there, they would lie down there. So too, monks, when a monk has developed and cultivated mindfulness directed to the body, the eye does not pull in the direction of agreeable forms, nor are disagreeable forms repulsive. The ear does not pull in the direction of the agreeable sounds, nor are disagreeable sounds repulsive. The nose does not pull in the direction of agreeable odors, nor are disagreeable odors repulsive. The tongue does not pull in the direction of agreeable forms or flavors, nor are disagreeable flavors repulsive. The body does not pull in the direction of agreeable physical objects, nor are disagreeable physical objects repulsive. The mind does not pull in the direction of agreeable mental objects, nor are disagreeable mental objects repulsive. It is in such a way that there is restraint. A strong post or pillar. This, monks, is a designation for mindfulness directed to the body. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will develop and cultivate mindfulness directed to the body. Make it our vehicle, make it our basis, stabilize it, exercise ourselves in it, and fully perfect it. Thus, you should train yourselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So a good portion of the path to enlightenment is all about restraining the mind. Here we are in volume 2, chapter 31, where the Buddha is teaching you how to restrain the mind and giving you an analogy to be able to help you to be able to see this. Because what the unenlightened mind does with its craving, desire, attachment is it pulls in all these different directions. And in the foundational programs, we just talk about craving, desire, attachment real generally and very broadly. But as you move into this program, you start to understand the fetter of central desire. Whenever we are talking about craving, desire, attachment, and all the other programs, we were pretty much talking about this fetter or this pollution, this taint, this defilement of central desire, where the mind is longing, yearning through the sense bases, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. And because of its central desire, it will long and yearn for agreeable things through these sense bases. And when it experiences agreeable contact through these sense bases, that's where the pleasant feelings will arise. But when it experiences disagreeable contact through the sense bases, that's where it'll experience the painful feelings. So the mind with its central desire will see things as favoring and opposing, or it'll have this agreeable or disagreeable aspect of the mind that it will see things as agreeable or disagreeable. This is what's happening underneath the covers, so to speak, when the mind is experiencing discontentedness. And the Buddha is teaching you to restrain the mind. Last week, we talked about the tortoise and the turtle, how the Buddha taught about drawing in the limbs of the turtle. Well, here he's giving it another analogy, that these animals are tied to this post and this pillar, and they're pulling in all these different directions because the eyes are pulling over here like, wow, look at that beautiful car. That's so amazing. I want to get one of those. But then there's the ear that's pulling over here, and the nose, and all these other things are pulling in all these different directions, just like these animals are pulling in all these different directions. But because they're tied to the post or pillar, they keep getting yanked back and yanked back and yanked back. Eventually, if the animals do that enough, they're going to become worn out and fatigued. And they're just going to sit down by that post or pillar and be calm and steady right there at that post and pillar because they know they can't pull any longer. Well, the Buddha is explaining the same thing as it relates to the mind, because in your meditation, which the next chapter is about meditation, the breath is the post or the pillar. And as the mind pulls, you're yanking it back and yanking it back and yanking it back. And then you're also doing that in day-to-day life, that wherever you see the mind pulling through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, or the mind sense space itself, wherever you see the mind longing, yearning like that, you need to pull it back. The meditation is helping you to train your mind to build that internal mechanism to be able to notice when your mind's pulling, that's your mindfulness, and to be able to cut off and let go. So that now in your day-to-day life, that's where a lot of the training is happening. It's not just in meditation, it's also in your day-to-day life too. So if you're noticing your mind longing, yearning, and trying to cling to something, trying to get those conditioned pleasant feelings, you need to be willing to cut that off, letting go of that temporary happiness so that you can get to the permanent joy, the permanent happiness. So that the mind, by the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer see things as agreeable or disagreeable. It's just contact through the sense spaces. I think I went through some examples last week on each of these sense spaces, but if you need help to understand some examples, because sometimes people have trouble with the mind sense space, understanding that one, just let me know when we get to the question period. I'll give you guys some different examples on any of these sense spaces where you can see how the mind's pulling towards agreeable contact, or it's repulsed and pushing away and averse to the disagreeable contact. Because ultimately what you would like to be able to do is build this restraint of the mind where you are able to restrain the mind. It's almost like a horse. If you've ever ridden a horse where you pull the reins back to restrain the horse, you need to do the same thing with your mind. The meditation is exercising the mind, giving you that ability to notice when the mind pulls and to yank it back, and building that internal mechanism to cut off and let go. But then in day-to-day life, from the moment you wake up all day long and as you're going to sleep at night, you need to be attentive to the mind with your mindfulness so that you can look over the mind and watch the mind. And anytime you see a longing, yearning, you can pull it back. And thus should you train yourselves. That's what the Buddha is explaining, training yourself in this way. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Again, if you guys need examples of these sense spaces and helping you to understand each one of them, let me know. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So let's move to chapter 32. This is where the Buddha is going to give us guidance on meditation. Any question, or I'm sorry, anybody would like to volunteer to read here? Okay, Vibhav, go ahead, sir.
Dwelling in breathing mindfulness meditation. Monks, that one gains at will, without trouble or difficulty, that concentration through the development and cultivation of which no shaking or trembling occurs in the body, and no shaking or trembling occurs in the mind. And what concentration is it through the development and cultivation of which no shaking or trembling occurs in the body, and no shaking or trembling occurs in the mind? It is, monks, when concentration by mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation, has been developed and cultivated, that no shaking or trembling occurs in the body, and no shaking or trembling occurs in the mind. And how, monks, is concentration by mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation, developed and cultivated, so that no shaking or trembling occurs in the body, and no shaking or trembling occurs in the mind? Here, monks, a monk, having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, sits down, having folded his legs crosswise, straightened his body and set up mindfulness in front of him. Just mindful he breathes in, mindful he breathes out. Breathing in long, he knows, I breathe in long. Or breathing out long, he knows, I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he knows, I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he knows, I breathe out short. He trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe in. He trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe out. He trains this, calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe in. He trains this, calming the bodily sensations, I will breathe out. He trains us, experiencing joy, I will breathe in. He trains us, experiencing joy, I will breathe out. He trains us, experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe in. He trains us, experiencing peacefulness, I will breathe out. He trains us, experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe in. He trains us, experiencing the mental activity, I will breathe out. He trains us, calming the mental activity, I will breathe in. He trains us, calming the mental activity, I will breathe out. He trains us, experiencing the mind, I will breathe in. He trains us, experiencing the mind, I will breathe out. He trains us, gladdening the mind, I will breathe in. He trains us, gladdening the mind, I will breathe out. He trains us, concentrating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains us, concentrating the mind, I will breathe out. He trains us, liberating the mind, I will breathe in. He trains us, liberating the mind, I will breathe out. He trains us, reflecting on impermanence, I will breathe in. He trains us, reflecting on impermanence, I will breathe out. He trains us, reflecting the fading away, I will breathe in. He trains us, reflecting on fading away, I will breathe out. He trains us, reflecting on elimination, I will breathe in. He trains us, reflecting on elimination, I will breathe out. He trains us, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe in. He trains us, reflecting on letting go, I will breathe out. It is months before my enlightenment. It is months when concentration by mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation has been developed and cultivated in this way that no shaking or trembling occurs in the body, and no shaking or trembling occurs in the mind. I 2 months before my enlightenment, while I was still unawakened, but intent on awakening, not yet fully enlightened, generally dwelt in this dwelling. When I generally dwelt in this dwelling, neither my body nor my eyes became fatigued, and my mind, by not clinging, was liberated from the taints. Therefore, monks, if a monk expires, when neither my body nor my eyes become fatigued, and may my mind, by not clinging, be liberated from the taints. This same concentration by mindfulness of breathing mindfulness meditation should be closely attended to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vibhav. So here we have a detailed instructions from the Buddha on meditation. But the way that you can think about this is like when we were children, we were taught to brush our teeth, and we were taught every single step of brushing our teeth. We were taught to get out our toothbrush, run it under water, put the toothpaste on, maybe run it under some water again, place it in our mouth, go back and forth or whatever it was. And ultimately, spitting out the paste and rinsing your mouth and all these kinds of things. And we had to think about each one of those steps each time when we were first learning how to brush our teeth. Where now we don't even think about it. We just bloom, 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 and we brush our teeth and we go forward. And that's the way that you should take a discourse like this, that the Buddha is giving guidance, like the same way I guide people in meditation, where I teach people to focus on the breath. And when the mind moves off the breath, to cut it off and let it go. But then eventually it's just quiet and you just do the work. So this isn't anything that you should be thinking about during the meditation. Sometimes people get confused like that, and they think that this is what should be happening during the meditation, that you should be thinking about these things and these statements that the Buddha is saying. But instead, that what you would be doing is you'd like to be focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back. Because it's breathing mindfulness meditation that is training your mind to let go, so that you don't experience this shaking or trembling in the mind or the body. Because when the mind is having stress and anxiety, anger and frustration and all these other feelings, that's the mind shaking, that it's not stable, it's not steady. So if you're interested in getting to this concentration, to this mindfulness, to the point where the mind is not shaking like that, you're going to need to understand the meditation and doing it in the way that the Buddha actually taught. So he's giving guidance here about going to the forest, sitting by the foot of a tree or an empty hut. You can meditate anywhere you would like to meditate. You don't have to go to the forest. You don't have to sit by a tree or in an empty hut. But this is what they did during the lifetime of the Buddha. So that's why he's describing that. He's describing the seated position here, but he also teaches the lying, standing, and walking position as well. He's talking about sitting with the legs cross-legged, with the body straightened up. This is where I teach people to put the sternum up and the shoulders back, because it keeps the mind attentive and alert. That's why the Buddha taught to straighten up the body. And it also makes it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind has a tendency to have difficulties to stay attentive and alert because it's sluggish. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, the mind can be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect, which helps to keep the mind attentive and alert and make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And then there's this set up mindfulness in front of you. The Buddha teaches that when he describes meditation, this is where you bring awareness to the mind and you don't just plop down into meditation. You would like to make sure that you've brought some general awareness to the mind. And that's why I teach the chanting, because that helps to bring some awareness to the mind. And then you would like to just start establishing the breath. Just like the way that I teach, what I've done is I've taken the Buddha's guidance and I've consolidated it in a way that you can start meditating. So the Buddha here starts to say, okay, start establishing the breath. And then as you establish the breath, you start focusing the mind on the breath. When he's talking about when you breathe in long or short, know that you breathe in long or short. What he's saying is focus the mind on the breath, right? Know that the mind is on the breath. And whether you breathe in long or short, it doesn't actually matter. But what he's explaining to you here is to focus the mind on the breath. Then he's talking about experiencing the body and then calming the bodily sensations. So as you're meditating and you're noticing certain aspects going on in the body, like maybe you're noticing some tension here or there, or noticing an itch or something like that, you would like to calm the bodily sensations. Don't give in to that overwhelming urge that your mind might have to be able to scratch or something like that. So you'd like to be able to go longer and longer periods of time, if you can, by calming the body. And if you're noticing tension in the body anywhere, you can use the mind to just relax that. That's going to help you to get more out of the meditation. Then as you're doing this, you might notice that the mind's starting to experience some joy and peacefulness during the meditation. It's important that you don't get conditioned pleasant feelings with how joyful and how peaceful the mind really is. You're going to get to a point where your mind is so utterly peaceful that you had no idea that the mind even was capable of doing this kind of thing. You need to be sure that you don't get conditioned pleasant feelings, because as you're making your way to that joy and that peacefulness, your mind is still polluted. It still has those fetters in there. So the mind has not yet experienced this permanently. So it's going to kind of be on or off in your meditation, but also in your day-to-day life too. So it's important that when you notice that unconditioned joy and that unconditioned peacefulness, that you don't allow the mind to get these pleasant feelings like, oh my gosh, there it is. There it is. I'm getting glimpses of the enlightenment. Because then when that's gone, your mind's going to be sad or frustrated. So that's why with the Buddha saying here that when you're experiencing joy or you're experiencing peacefulness, just focus on the breath. That's what he's saying. Just focus on the breath. Don't allow your mind to get these conditioned pleasant feelings. Then as you're experiencing mental activity, like certain thoughts, certain ideas, or certain things like this are going through the mind during meditation, you need to calm that by cutting it off and letting it go. Here in a little bit, you're going to see where he says, let go. And there's other discourses where he specifically says, cut off and let go. So when you're noticing the mind is wandering to the past or the future, or you're trying to do your grocery list or think about different things from your day, just let all that go. You need to calm the mental activity. As you start experiencing the mind, you're going to notice that the mind is starting to become gladdened. And if it's not, you're going to need to apply this gladdening to the mind, where you kind of uplift the mind. And you can notice this concentration and this focus, and the mind's becoming more liberated. It's becoming more free. As these things are occurring, you need to just focus on the breath. Don't allow the mind again to get those conditioned pleasant feelings. Understand that these things are all impermanent. They're going to fade away, and focus on eliminating the causes and conditions that are producing all this stuff coming up by cutting off and letting go, cutting off and letting go. And that's why the Buddha finishes with the last guidance, where he says, let go, focus on the breath, let go. So these are the things that are going to be going on during your meditation, and you just keep focusing on the breath. When the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back. Now, the Buddha is talking about how breathing mindfulness meditation leads to concentration, and it does, because when you're focused on the breath, it's helping you to exercise the mind, to have more concentration. But what's really helping you with the concentration is the breathing mindfulness meditation is training your mind to let go. And when you let go of the cravings, desires, attachments in your mind, not just in meditation, but outside of meditation, your mind's going to become more focused and more concentrated. Because the way you can think about this is, in the unenlightened state, it's almost like you're standing on top of a garbage heap, and you've got all these cravings, desires, attachments. And when you start clearing that out, your mind becomes more focused and concentrated. Because as we were talking about with the 6 sense bases in the previous discourse, the mind is pulling in all these different directions. So if you're walking in the mall and your eyes are pulling over here and your ears are pulling over there with the music and the sounds and the people talking, and your nose is pulling over here with some perfume, and your tongue is pulling over here to go to the food court and get something to eat, and people are bumping into you, and you're noticing your body, and the mind's pulling over there, and then the mind itself, when your mind's pulling in all these different directions, you can't be focused and concentrated. So it's when the mind is restrained and you're cutting off central desire, and it's becoming more stable and steady, that's where more and more of the focus comes in to play in terms of your mind. The Buddha is talking here in a rare situation where he's talking about prior to getting to enlightenment. You don't see this too often with the Buddha, where he's talking about prior to enlightenment. Normally he's talking about how to get to enlightenment itself. But here he's talking about before he was enlightened, not yet fully enlightened. He dwelt in this dwelling, meaning that he spent a lot of time doing breathing mindfulness meditation. This is one of the primary things that he did, or the primary thing, along with everything else. There's more than just meditation that you would need in order to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. But this is a meditation that he would do frequently and often, because that's what's going to lead to the elimination of discontentedness. Because this meditation is eliminating craving, desire, attachment, which is the cause of discontentedness. And when he was focused on this meditation, what he's saying is, neither my body nor my eyes became fatigued, and my mind, by not clinging, was liberated from the taints. This is where he's talking about training the mind to let go and eliminate those 10 fetters. Whenever you see the word taints, he's referring to the 10 fetters, the pollutions of mind, the defilements, the taints, the fetters. This is what he's talking about here. So you can always know that when he's talking about being liberated from the taints, he's talking about purification of the mind and getting rid of those 10 fetters. So he's saying here, this is a nice way for a teacher to encourage their students, where he says, therefore, monks, if a monk aspires, may neither my body nor my mind become fatigued, and may my mind, by not clinging, be liberated from the taints. The same concentration by mindfulness of breathing should be closely attended to. What he's saying is, it's really important for you to do breathing mindfulness meditation. If you're interested in getting to enlightenment, you're going to need to do a whole lot of breathing mindfulness meditation. And this is a really kind way of saying it, where you're not pushing, you're not putting craving, desire, attachment, you're not putting expectations on people and trying to control them of what to do. He's just saying, hey, this is a meditation that led to my enlightenment. Therefore, if this is what you're interested in, you're going to need to learn this meditation and practice it as well. So this is the Buddha helping you to be able to see the importance of breathing mindfulness meditation, that it's going to lead to your enlightenment, and the instructions of exactly how to do it in terms of what you would be doing during the meditation. There's some other discourses that you're going to see when we get to volume 7, where he breaks this down even further, and he shows you how each individual aspect of what he's teaching you is helping you to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So let me know what questions you guys have here. This is volume 2, chapter 32. Okay, it looks like maybe Leo has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. David. Then I thought maybe you could give some examples about the mind sense space you talked about in the first chapter. I mean, I understand that it's about the thoughts and thinking about the past and the future and clinging to them. Maybe I forgot something, or yeah.
Sure. So say somebody in the past had a certain amount of wealth, and now in the present moment, they don't have that same wealth. Let's just say the finances have taken a downturn, and maybe they don't really have much money. And let's just say that at one time they were really super mega rich and they had all kinds of employees and doing all kinds of things. But now, several years later, they've lost all that money and they're actually out there doing labor work on their own, right? And this is how they have to earn their living, by doing this laborious work, where before they didn't have to do any of that kind of stuff. Well, in the present moment, their mind can be thinking about the things that they used to do in the past and the type of life that they had in the past. And they can be getting all these pleasant feelings, conditioned pleasant feelings. And they can also be experiencing painful feelings in the present moment, because maybe they're thinking about the past and really wishing that they had that kind of lifestyle again. So what this is there isn't any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or the body itself. It's just purely within the mind, that the mind is thinking about the past, something pleasurable or painful, and now in the present moment it's forming feelings based on thinking about something from the past. And the same thing can happen for the future, that you can be thinking about something pleasurable in the future, like going on vacation or holiday. There isn't any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, but in the mind itself, it's thinking about this vacation, this holiday, and now in the present moment, you're having conditioned pleasant feelings. Or there can be painful feelings, like say you need to give a presentation to your boss in 2 weeks, and maybe there's many vice presidents and directors and executive directors, and you're feeling like you're anxious or stressed or other feelings like this. Again, there's no contact at this particular time. It's just you sitting there thinking, and now with the mind thinking about that future situation, in the present moment, you're experiencing discontentedness. So there's no contact through any other sense base when the mind sense base itself is experiencing discontentedness because of thinking of the past or the future. And now it's forming feelings in the present moment based on those things. Some people would call what I'm talking about the past, they might call it like PTSD, right? Where their mind, maybe they experienced something, like maybe in war, they went to war, and now in the present moment, they're experiencing all these painful feelings of thinking about things that happened in the past. All that is the mind's clinging to these experiences. You can train your mind to not do that anymore. So this is the mind's sense base. It's longing and yearning. There's no contact from any other sense base. It's just within the mind itself. Yep, you're welcome. Okay, so I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to move on to this next chapter. This next chapter is very similar to the one that we just read. It's just that the paragraph at the beginning and the paragraph at the end is a little bit different. So if somebody would like to read this one, we'll just read these paragraphs at the beginning and at the end, because this long thing here is exactly the same as what we just read. Okay, it looks like Samantha's first, and then Kristen is after that.
Breathing mindfulness meditation, the Tathagata's dwelling. Monks, if wanderers of other communities ask you, In what dwelling, friends, did the perfectly enlightened one generally dwell during the rains retreat? Being asked thus, you should answer those wanderers thus. During the rains residence, friends, the perfectly enlightened one generally resided in the concentration by mindfulness of breathing.
Okay, so now we'll go down here.
If anyone, monks, speaking rightly, could say of anything, it is a noble dwelling, an excellent dwelling, the Tathagata's dwelling. It is of concentration by mindfulness of breathing that one could rightly say this. Monks, those monks who are trainees, who have not attained their mind's ideal, who dwell aspiring for the unsurpassed security from bondage or enlightenment, for them, concentration by mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated, leads to the destruction of taints. Those monks who are arahants, whose taints are destroyed, who have lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached their own goal, completely destroyed the fetters of existence, those completely liberated through final knowledge. For them, concentration by mindfulness of breathing, when developed and cultivated, leads to a peaceful dwelling in this very life and to mindfulness and clear comprehension. If anyone, monks, speaks rightly, could say of anything, it is a noble dwelling, an excellent dwelling, the Tathagata's dwelling. It is of concentration by mindfulness of breathing that one could rightly say this.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So first, up here at this top paragraph, the Buddha is talking about his rains retreat, essentially, where he actually dwelled in this breathing mindfulness meditation. What the rains retreat is 3 months out of the year, it would be rainy season. And he encouraged his ordained practitioners to basically stay put, to stay wherever they are, and to not travel during that period of time. Because during the lifetime of the Buddha, there weren't well-defined sidewalks like there are today that would take you from one place to the other, or well-defined roads that take you from one place to the other. So they oftentimes were walking through people's land in order to get from one place to the next. And during the rains season, the rainy season, the ground was really soft and they might have planted their crops. And if all these thousands and thousands and thousands of people were walking around, then it would tromp down on these crops and it would destroy the crops. And now the people would have difficulties getting food. If you can imagine, during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were countless people that were coming to learn with him. So there'd be people coming from all over the place to come learn with him. So he would encourage people to kind of basically go to a certain place and then just stay there during that 3-month period. And oftentimes people would come to wherever the Buddha was. The Jedis Grove, which is a monastery in northeast India, where you can see that this is the Buddha's, mostly the place where he did a lot of teaching. And people would come there and that would actually learn from him at that location. So he would talk about here in this discourse how he dwelled in this breathing mindfulness meditation. That's where he spent a lot of his time during the rains retreat. Because one of the things that a teacher is doing is they're sharing with you what they do in their life, so that then if you aspire to experience the same mental state, then you understand what it is that they do. So the Buddha is saying during this 3-month period, he's spending a lot of time in meditation. So that way his students would understand, like, yes, this is a wise thing to do. If he's the Buddha and he's enlightened and that's what he does during the rainy season, then maybe that's what we should do too. And that's why he's saying this is a noble dwelling, an excellent dwelling. It's the Tathagata's dwelling, is breathing mindfulness meditation. And that's what's going to lead to enlightenment. That when he talks about this unsurpassed security from bondage, that is enlightenment, where there's this security from bondage, because the mind's bound up when it has all these pollutions in there. And this unsurpassed, meaning like there's no other thing that's better than having this protection of your mind, where your mind's no longer bound up. Because in order to get to this point, the mind's going to need to be developed and cultivated to be able to eliminate the taints or destroy the taints, eliminate those pollutions of the mind. That's the goal. That's the ultimate objective. And it's this breathing mindfulness meditation that's going to help you to accomplish that. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So it looks like we'll go to Kristen for chapter 34. Let me see. I've got to find you on here. When got to shuffle through. There you are. So when you guys raise your hand, it pops you up to the top, so it's easier to see you.
Thank you, teacher. My internet's a little unstable, so someone may have to continue reading if it goes out.
Okay.
One who develops mindfulness of death diligently for the destruction of the taints. Monks, mindfulness of death, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and benefit, culminating in the deathless, enlightenment, having the deathless as its conclusion. But do you, monks, develop mindfulness of death? When this was said, one monk said to the perfectly enlightened one, Venerable Sir, I develop mindfulness of death. Monks, the monk who develops mindfulness of death, thus, may I live just a night and a day so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teachings. I could then accomplish much. May I live just a day so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teaching. I could then accomplish much. May I live just half a day so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teaching. I could then accomplish much. May I live just the length of time it takes to eat a single alms food meal so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teaching. I could then accomplish much. May I live just the length of time it takes to eat half an alms food meal so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teaching. I could then accomplish much. May I live just the length of time it takes to chew and swallow 4 or 5 mouthfuls of food so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teaching. I could then accomplish much. These are called monks who dwell carelessly. They develop mindfulness of death sluggishly for the destruction of the taints. But the monk who develops mindfulness of death thus, may I live just the length of time it takes to chew and swallow a single mouthful of food so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teaching. I could then accomplish much. May I live just the length of time it takes to breathe out after breathing in, or to breathe in after breathing out, so that I may attend to the perfectly enlightened one's teaching. I could then accomplish much. These are called monks who reside determined. They develop mindfulness of death diligently for the destruction of the taints. Therefore, monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will reside determined. We will develop mindfulness of death diligently for the destruction of the taints. Thus should you train yourselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kristen. So one of the things that you're going to need in order to be able to get to enlightenment is determination, dedication, and diligence. There's going to be times where, of course, the path to enlightenment is fun. It's enjoyable. You're learning all these new things. You're noticing the improvement to the condition of your mind and your relationships are improving. Wow, that's so much fun and enjoyable. But there's also going to be a lot of challenges where it's really, the mind is struggling in certain aspects. And when it's struggling, that's when you're actually cultivating the most wisdom and have the opportunity to cultivate the most wisdom. So you would like to walk towards those struggles, not shrink back from them, but walk towards them. And it's going to take determination, dedication, and diligence to do that. So the Buddha is talking about these two different groups of people where people are just kind of a little bit sluggish and just kind of really not attending to the teachings very closely. But then he's talking about this other group of people that are very diligently attending to the teachings. And that's what you would like to be able to do, is get to the point where you're interested in practicing the teachings and eagerly and actively learning the teachings on a regular basis, so that this will help you to grow and develop as an individual, that you don't allow your mind to become complacent or dull or sluggish. Because when your mind moves into complacency, the longer you allow it to be there, the harder it is to get it back out. So if you're noticing that you've gone a day or 2 or 3 without meditating, you need to jump right back on that. Don't allow your mind to be complacent. Get right back into the meditation. Don't allow it to go further, because it'll be a lot harder to get the mind out of that complacency. So this determination, dedication, and diligence is so important, because that's what's going to help you to eliminate the taints or the pollutions, because it can be utterly exhausting sometimes to be able to be attentive to the mind all day long. And whenever you see craving, desire, attachment coming up, to be able to cut that off and cut that off and cut that off. But as you do this more and more, it becomes effortless. where eventually you get to the point where there isn't any craving, desire, attachment arising, and the mind can be completely peaceful and joyful. But on the way there, you're going to need a lot of dedication and diligence. When the Buddha talks about complacency, you'll see it in his teachings, that he talks about complacency all the way to the level of detail that if you are having an unwholesome thought and you do nothing about it, that the mind is complacent. We can understand complacency, like if you don't read the books, if you don't come to classes, if you aren't meditating, yeah, your mind's complacent. But he talks about it all the way to the levels if there's an unwholesome thought that comes into your mind and you do nothing about it, this is the mind's complacency. So if you're walking down the street and you see judgment, where you're starting to look at people with conceit and you're looking down at them, you'd like to cut that off and let it go. Or if you're noticing that anger, frustration, or irritation, or the slightest little annoyance is coming up in the mind, you'd like to cut that off and let it go. But then further, what he's talking about here is mindfulness of death, or sometimes he refers to it as contemplation of death or reflection on death. This is a certain technique that he teaches in order to train your mind to let go of craving to be in this world permanently, where you can reflect on your own death or you can reflect on the death of other people. When you're reflecting on your own death, it's helping you to understand impermanence, that this existence is not permanent, where you're not craving existence, but you're not craving non-existence either. This is going to help you to eliminate the 6th and 7th fetter, which is desire for form and desire for formless. By the time you eliminate these two fetters, you actually won't have any fear of death any longer. Sometimes people fear death, but death is going to come visit every single one of us. And it can either sneak up on you and catch you by surprise. It almost feels like maybe the rug is being pulled out from under your feet, or someone's chopping you off at the knees, or you can go and visit death. And that's what mindfulness of death or reflection on death or contemplation of death is all about, is where you sit quietly, you close your eyes, and you envision that you've actually died. It's kind of like being like a fly on the wall at your own funeral. And you kind of see all this out. And you might grieve during this process, and this is normal. And you might find your mind is letting go, or you might find this fear coming up in the mind. That's allowing your mind to confront death so that you can cut off and let go of any discontent feelings. Because death is going to come visit every single one of us, and it can catch you by surprise, or you can go visit death. That's essentially what mindfulness of death is, or contemplation of death, or reflection of death, is that you see death waiting for you back in the corner of the room. And you're like, I see you back there. I know you're going to come visit me at some point, but you know what? I'm going to come visit you, and I'm going to get comfortable with you, because you're going to need to do that at some point. But if oftentimes what people will delay or push away the idea of death, and they don't want to think about it because it becomes uncomfortable for their mind. It is challenging for their mind to think about their own death or the death of the people that are close to them. That uncomfortableness that you're feeling, that's because of the craving, the mind craving permanent existence, or craving for your friends and family to be permanent. So when you think about your death or their death, the mind becomes uncomfortable. It becomes discontent in that situation because it's triggering a craving, desire, attachment. But that's exactly what you would like to do, is put this mind in a situation that it doesn't want to be in and train it to be comfortable and content. So the Buddha is talking about two different things here. One is about arising determination, dedication, and diligence, but also being aware that your own death is going to be coming at some point. And it would be unwise to delay the growth and development on the path to enlightenment. You would like to be learning as early as possible and as feasibly possible in your life. But there's really no bad time to learn. Even if you learn later in your life, that's fine too, because you can get to enlightenment in this life. No matter what age you are, you can make your way towards enlightenment. But the earlier you do this, the better, because then you can learn the teachings early on, get to enlightenment, and then enjoy the rest of your life in that enlightened mental state. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. This is chapter 34. One who develops mindfulness of death diligently for the destruction of the taints, those fetters and pollutions. So it looks like Vibhav has a question. Go ahead, sir.
David, thank you, teacher David. Like, how often should you be practicing mindfulness of death?
I recommend.
Apart from all that, yeah.
Sure, I recommend about once a month. That's usually best for your mind, because if you do it too frequently, it doesn't have the effect. But if you have the Eightfold Path well underway, that this can help you, because when you do mindfulness of death, you might notice that it's pretty impactful. You might actually grieve. You might feel sorrowful. You might have other thoughts like this. So you'd like to have a regular breathing mindfulness meditation well developed so that you can regain the composure of the mind. And now you go, 4 weeks with all your regular practice of the Eightfold Path, and then you hit it again, and you hit it again, and you hit it again. The soonest I would say is maybe once every 2 weeks, but once a month is usually best because it gives the mind that break. And if it's going to kind of grab on again, then you have the time for the mind. If it's going to do that, then it's going to do that. But then you can kind of do it again and again and again each month. And you would like to do this for yourself. You would also like to do it for the people who are close to you, like your wife, your children. If people have animals like pets and things like this, oftentimes there's grief and sorrow during the death of those beings too. So an individual could do their animals as well, so that basically you get to the point where you're comfortable with the impermanence of your own death and all these beings around you. And your mind has come to terms with that, and you're no longer grieving or sorrowful. The way that you'll know that it's time to stop doing reflection on death is that you'll do it for maybe 2 or 3 times after you've done it, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 times, however many times it takes. Then you'll do it another 2 or 3 times, and there's no sadness, there's no grief or sorrow whatsoever.
And so in each time, much time should you spend on it? Like, should you do it for yourself and everybody together, or should you split it out? Or, but I mean, if it takes about, for me, it takes about maybe 10 to 15 minutes to go through the whole process.
Yeah.
So that's about it, or should you be including other people? So you do it like half hour, or like how would you split it?
It only should take about 10 or 15 minutes per person. And if I was you, I would do, whatever being you're going to do, either yourself or your wife or your children, whichever one you're going to do, you do one at a time. And you only would work with one, and then do that over multiple months. So if it's going to be your death, you do that over 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and you work on your own death. And now once your mind has gotten to the point where there's no grieving and sorrow and sadness, then your next person, and then do that for multiple months until your mind is not have any grief or sorrow with that particular person. You could do an entire group, like maybe like your whole family dies in a car accident, right? You could do it that way. There's no harm in doing it that way, but you'll notice that when you do one by one, it allows the mind to really focus on that particular being, whether it's yourself or others.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've asked you this before, but just to clarify, so generally when I do it, I try to put myself in different situations and then try to do it that way, see, but the ending is kind of the same, like getting cremated, because that's what happens in our culture. But like in the beginning, I just try to do different kind of situations where maybe a car accident or earthquake or, getting shot or something like that. So is that helpful to just have different situations, go through different situations and try to do it?
Yeah, that's helpful. And also do the part after the cremation too, where your family moves on with their life happily ever after. And they're cheerful and they're joyful. They're not upset. They're not sorrowful. They, go back to the things that they're going to do as well. So you don't just stop with the cremation, but you go beyond that as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. What that does is it helps your mind to be able to see that there's life after death. The same thing, like if you do the contemplation of death for your wife, sometimes people can't imagine living without their partner. So you're not interested in just going up to like the cremation. You would like to go beyond that, where there's life after this death. And then you can see your mind doing that. You're not planning it. You're not aspiring for this to occur, but you're just allowing your mind to live that out. So your mind can understand that, yes, this being is impermanent and there's life after death. In terms of this person's death, there's life for you after that.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to move to the next chapter, which is chapter 35. Looks like Pat's volunteering to read that one, or maybe Leo. So maybe we'll go to Leo, Pat, give him a chance to read.
Yeah, thank you. Direct knowledge for sick monks. The 5 things do not slip away from a weak and sick monk. It can be predicted of him. In no long time, with the destruction of the taints, he will realize for himself with direct knowledge, in this very life, the taintless liberation of mind. Liberation by wisdom, and having entered upon it, he will reside in it. What 5? Here, a monk resides, reflecting on the unattractiveness of the body, receiving the dissatisfaction of food, receiving non-excitement in the entire world, reflecting on impermanence in all conditioned objects. And he has the perception of death well established internally. If these 5 things do not slip away from a weak and sick monk, it can be predicted of him. In no long time, with the destruction of the taints, he will realize for himself with direct knowledge, in this very life, the taintless liberation of mind, liberation by wisdom, and having entered upon it, he will reside in it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Leo. So I'm going to talk about each one of these separately, because sometimes when people read this, it's like, wow, this sounds very pessimistic. I'm not sure if I'm interested in getting to enlightenment. All right. So this first one, where he's talking about the 5 things that need to be developed in the mind, he's talking about this reflection on the unattractiveness of the body. What this does is it helps train the mind to eliminate its craving for sexual contact. Now, you've probably heard me in the foundational teachings talk about how you can get to the second stage of enlightenment and still be having a sexual relationship. And you might decide to hang out there for a while. But at some point, you're going to kind of been there, done this enough. And now your mind's going to start experiencing more and more peacefulness. And you're going to be more interested in that than the sexual activity. Because there's actually something better in the world than sex. It's actually this enlightened mental state. As you experience more and more peace of the mind, you'll be more and more interested in enlightenment and probably less and less interested in sex. But even still, trying to move away from sexual cravings can be kind of challenging for the mind. So there's this unattractiveness of the body that the Buddha helps you to develop through meditation. There's a meditation that's called the 32-part body meditation, or you can nowadays do it with an image where you can stare at an image, and this will help you to develop this attractiveness of the body. Because the reason why the mind wants to have sex is because it wants this sensual pleasure, it wants these pleasant feelings, but it sees this outer shell of the body. It sees the hair, the muscles, the skin, the clothing, the jewelry, the makeup, whatever this other being has on. You're noticing that we need to do all these things to the body to make it attractive to someone that they're willing to then have sex, right? But what you would like to do in order to train your mind to reduce or eliminate sexual cravings is to train it to have this unattractiveness of the body where you don't see the body as being attractive. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll know like, wow, that man's very handsome, or wow, that female's very beautiful. You'll know that, right? You're not going to be repulsed. It's not like, ugh, right? It's not repulsion. It's just training your mind and rewiring it that this body isn't something to have sex with because it's something that's unattractive. Because if somebody ripped off their skin and they were like, okay, go have sex now, you probably wouldn't be interested in having sex with that being because the body is just exposed and there's not this outer layer of skin, which maybe helps to make it look attractive. So the Buddha is helping you to essentially rewire the mind to be seeing this unattractiveness of the body. Because as long as there's a craving for sexual desire and sexual activity in the mind, you can't be permanently peaceful and permanently joyful. Because in some situations you'll be able to get sex, and in other situations you can't, and you'll be agitated or frustrated. So at some point you might decide to use this meditation or this reflecting on the unattractiveness of the body to help you reduce and eliminate sexual cravings. Perceiving the dissatisfaction of food is to be able to understand that it's unwise to allow your mind to form conditioned pleasant feelings based on food. Because that's what we tend to do in the unenlightened state, is that you might experience certain painful feelings and the mind thinks, well, how can I get out of these? Right? Because the mind lacks wisdom and it might turn to a big chocolate cake or a tub of ice cream or some other favorite food in order to be able to get its pleasant feelings. But this is just keeping the problem going on further, because the whole reason why the mind's in the painful feelings is because of craving, desire, attachment. So the most unwise thing you could do is turn to another craving to be able to get to pleasant feelings, because those are conditional too. This is why someone might come home from a hard day at work and turn to drugs or alcohol or sex or shopping or gambling or something like this in order to be able to get to something that feels better than these painful feelings. And that's the conditioned pleasant feelings. But that hasn't actually solved the problem. It's just allowed the problem to continue because there's still craving in the mind. So if you're turning to food in order to get pleasant feelings, then the mind is still having craving, desire, attachment. It doesn't understand this problem that it's stuck in, this cycle of going around and around and around. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you will be eating something and you'll know like, wow, this tastes really good. This is amazing food. But you'll understand not to allow the mind to cling to it and crave it to be permanent, because it is impermanent. This food is not permanent. So you need to be able to perceive the dissatisfaction of food, meaning you understand that your ultimate satisfaction, your contentedness, your joy in the world is not going to come through food. While we need food and we need that to sustain our body, and we'll know that food tastes wonderful, and this food over here maybe doesn't taste as good, we can actually still eat that food. And we've trained our mind to get to the point where we understand that this food is just to nourish the body. It's not to please the tongue and please the mind. It's to be able to nourish the body. So if you can get to the point where you understand that food ultimately isn't going to lead to your satisfaction, that it's just to be able to sustain the health of the body, then you can develop this perception of dissatisfaction of food, meaning that you understand that it's not going to lead to your ultimate satisfaction. But of course, you're still going to know that food tastes good and you're still going to enjoy the food that you're eating, but you just need to train your mind to not have conditioned pleasant feelings. And this can sound very strange to people when I first start talking about it, because the mind in the unenlightened state doesn't understand how to enjoy something without conditioned pleasant feelings. It's so used to craving, desire, attachment, and when you get your cravings fulfilled, you get pleasant feelings, and now you enjoy this particular food. But you need to be able to get to the point where you can enjoy certain activities, but there's no conditioned pleasant feelings in the mind. And this way you can enjoy all activities. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can enjoy all these activities. So perceiving the dissatisfaction of food is just to understand that this food isn't going to lead to your ultimate satisfaction. And the same thing is true with perceiving non-excitement in the entire world. This sounds very pessimistic, right? But what the Buddha is helping you to be able to see here is that it's not the things in the world that is going to lead to your satisfaction. That you need to be able to get to the point where you understand, like, sure, I need to buy that car, but that, Corvette is not going to lead to my satisfaction in the world. Or sure, I need to buy this new house, but that's not what's going to lead to my satisfaction in the world. So this is to understand that material objects isn't what's going to lead to your peace and joy and your satisfaction. That's what it means by perceiving non-excitement in the entire world, that it's none of these material objects that's going to lead to your ultimate happiness and peace. Of course, but you need those things in order to sustain your life. And then reflecting on impermanence in all conditioned objects. That's what's going to actually help you get to the point where you understand the unattractiveness of the body, the dissatisfaction of food, and you understand that these material objects are not going to lead to ultimate satisfaction because they're all impermanent. They can't lead to permanent happiness. As long as you allow your mind to cling on to this sexual activity or cling on to food or cling on to any other material object in the world, then the mind is ultimately going to end up in the painful feelings. So you need to be able to understand and reflect that everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing, and allowing your mind to cling to any of this stuff isn't going to lead to permanent satisfaction. And then, like we were just talking about with mindfulness of death or reflection on death, contemplation of death, you need to develop this perception of death, that it's well established, that you understand this existence is not permanent. And this is actually going to help you to be able to eliminate craving for existence and craving for non-existence, that you understand that death is normal. It's going to come visit every single one of you. And when the wind blows, we don't get upset, right? When we're walking down the street and there's no wind, it's just no wind. But then when the wind blows, that is just impermanence. That's all that is. And we don't get upset when the wind blows. We don't get frustrated or agitated. Even in the unenlightened state, we typically, you could be, but typically people aren't getting upset and frustrated when the wind blows. So it's the same kind of thing. Even though we wouldn't make light of death, death is just impermanence. That's all it is. And you can get to the point where you're not upset and sorrowful and grieving whenever there's death. It's just like the wind blows. It's just change. This person was alive and now they're dead. But this can sound insensitive to some people because their mind's clinging and holding on and longing, yearning for this being to be permanent. But if you understand what I'm sharing here, that the only thing that's happening is someone's going from being alive to dead, it's just like the wind is blowing, that it's just impermanence. That's all it actually is. And we can have appreciation and gratitude for having this life, and we can have appreciation and gratitude for the people that are in our life, but understand that none of it's permanent, that these people in our life are not permanent, and our own life itself is not permanent. And that will help you to establish this perception of death so that you don't continue to cling to this life thinking that it's permanent. So I see some hands up. I think Pat's was for the reading, but I see Samantha is up as well. So go ahead, Samantha.
Thank you, Teacher David. I have a question about just general physical touch. So I understand eliminating sexual activity and sexual conduct as one moves along the path. But, as friends and family and, well, just even with strangers, it's not uncommon for us to touch someone to comfort them, to give them a hug or to hold a hand or something like that. As we become less discontent and we've eliminated fetters and whatnot, and we ourselves don't need or feel the benefit for physical touch, would you still offer that to others that might benefit from it? Say, like yourself, do you touch your family members, or as we move further along, is that something that we move away from?
No, you still might do those kinds of things like hugging people or holding hands. Those are things that people do, but you'll again do that without conditioned pleasant feelings or painful feelings. I remember at one time when I used to go to my wife and I would go for a hug or hold her hand. If she did it, I would be really happy. And if she didn't, I would be sad or frustrated. Where now, your mind doesn't have that craving, desire, attachment. You might go to hug somebody and they're like, oh, I got to go over here and do something. I'll be right back. And your mind would just be like, all right, up to you. Right? You're just completely peaceful and joyful. But you still might decide to hug people, but you're not doing it based on your own emotional needs, or you're not doing it based on any kind of craving. You might just do it to show affection. And this is something that an enlightened being may do from time to time. There just isn't going to be conditioned pleasant feelings as part of it, where the mind can have joy and enjoyment, no matter whether those things are happening or not.
Okay, I understand that from my standpoint, but I was just wondering if we could still touch others for their comfort, or like you said, to show affection. So as long as we're not attached to a feeling that comes with it, then it's okay to do what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't put myself in a position of saying, whether something's okay or not okay, because you need to live in the present moment and decide what's wise in that situation. So there's some situations where someone might come to me for a hug and I will hug them, right? Because I see that they're coming towards me for a hug. But if I see that someone's really craving it and they're really attached to it, and maybe they're doing it frequently, there's situations where I might choose not to do that in order to train their mind to let go and to not have this craving. But you need to be, skillful and attentive when you're doing this, and doing it with loving kindness and compassion, so that it doesn't come off as being cold or brash or anything like that. So there's not a situation where you would always hug someone or never hug someone. it's in the middle way where you need to look at each situation and decide what would be wise in that situation. But there's no harm in hugging someone, but it's just a matter of whether you are working to be able to help other people to eliminate their cravings or not. That's something that I do frequently, that I'm always, kind of attentive to other people's cravings. And then if there's things that I can do to be able to help them to eliminate those cravings, then I will tend to do those things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Oh, there was another question maybe from Leo. Go ahead, Leo.
Yeah. I thought about, for example, if I come from work, the mind often likes to or wants to have a reward. Is it better that I just don't give this mind the reward? I mean, he thinks like, I came from work, it was so much work. Now I would like to lie on the sofa and do something on the phone, play some game. But for sure, it's a craving, right, to relax and play something. So I'm sometimes thinking, what do I do other than, just sit there and do nothing, maybe meditate a little bit. But yeah, I'm just struggling a little bit with this coming from work, reward the mind, lying down. Yeah, do you have some ideas on that?
Okay, so it's important to understand that the act of lying down and choosing to rest and relax doesn't mean that there's a craving in the mind. So you can't say like, because someone has a mobile phone, they're craving, or because someone's holding that person's hand, they have a craving. You can't look at the action and determine whether or not there's actually a craving in the mind. You have to look internally within one's own mind. That's why your mindfulness is so important. The craving, desire, attachment isn't the action of choosing to rest and relax. It's the way the mind will long and yearn for it. So if you've looked in your mind with mindfulness and you do have a craving, desire, attachment, then sure, you need to be able to address that. But just be sure that that's the case, because it may or may not be the case. If you think you have a craving, desire, attachment, and you're getting pleasant feelings from that thing, then you're going to need to distance yourself from it. So if coming home, relaxing on the sofa and playing a video game is the craving and the mind is longing, yearning to play that video game, then you're going to need to distance yourself from that video game. And maybe you just come home and relax on the sofa, right? And now you set aside the video game. But the mind's going to have a hard time to do that because of his craving. So that's where you need to distance your mind from it, do enough breathing mindfulness meditation and practice of generosity that you train the mind to be able to let go. If there's something in your life that you're experiencing aversion to, or you're pushing it away, you're going to need to include that into your life in order to be able to train your mind to let go of that craving. So, for example, say that you don't want to be around large crowds and you're trying to stay as far away from those large crowds as possible because the mind's uncomfortable around large crowds. You're going to need to go around large crowds in order to train your mind to let go of whatever craving it's having that's causing it the uncomfortableness in that situation. So you need to not look at the action, but look at what's going on in the mind and then devise a plan for how to address it. Whether you have pleasant feelings, you're going to distance yourself from it. And if you're getting painful feelings, you're going to need to include that into your practice in order to expose the mind to it so it can let go.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Looks like Kristen has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, teacher. So the question I have is, for example, getting, say, a massage. Now, I don't have necessarily a craving that I have to have the massage, but if I do go and get a massage and it feels good on the body, how is that affecting the mind? So I don't have necessarily a craving, like if I didn't get a massage, I'd be okay. But I do, and I go, and now I'm getting, it just feels good in the body. Is that, how do I work around that?
Sure. So there's the physical body and then there's the mind. These are two different things. And a massage is meant to be for the physical body to help take out the tension and the stress of the body, not the mind, but the tension that the body is holding. Where oftentimes people talk about it as affecting the mind, but it's the mind's craving for permanent comfort of the body, that when the body has tension, the mind is agitated and frustrated. And when you release this tension, the physical pain isn't as strong. So now the mind can relax because its craving isn't being triggered. So the massage itself isn't really affecting the mind. It's affecting the physical body. And then the mind itself, because of its craving, is actually being affected. So you can actually get a massage and be just fine. Think of it as a medical treatment where you're addressing the tension in the body. And then you would like to train your mind to not get conditioned pleasant feelings because of it. So if you're noticing that your mind is getting conditioned pleasant feelings and you would like to go extended periods of time without getting a massage, but if you're not sure, like it sounds like you say you're sure that you're not getting conditioned pleasant feelings, but if you're not sure, one of the ways you can do this, not just with a massage, but like say you're going to buy a new mobile phone or a new car, or any of these other kinds of things, you can actually go to the place, look at the menu of the massages or look at the mobile phones, check them out. And then after you're there for 5-10 minutes or so, then leave and don't purchase the service or don't purchase the product. And then when you leave, observe the mind. Is the mind agitated or is it frustrated? Because the mind actually can be very tricky and it can try to convince you that you don't have a craving in a certain situation. And you might think that's the case, but this is how you can kind of test that out and see is go to visit the cell phone shop 3, 4, 5, 6 times before you actually buy it over multiple weeks and check it out and leave and check it out and leave. Same thing with massage. You can do that and then just observe the mind if there's any discontentedness. And that'll help you to be able to determine if there's a craving. Because if there's discontentedness, there's definitely a craving. And this is the way to kind of challenge the mind because the mind is untrained, it's undisciplined. If you put the mind in that situation with the massage where you're looking at menus, you're looking at the spa, it's maybe a very beautiful spa, maybe it has a certain odor, you're hearing the music and the ambiance, and your mind's kind of in that environment, but you just choose to turn around and leave. This is kind of like testing the mind a bit, and you'll be able to see, is there any discontentedness? And that'll help you to know if there's any craving there. But ultimately, you would be able to do these kinds of things and many other things. Like there's really not anything that an individual is really limited from in terms of training their mind. By the time you get to enlightenment, of course, you're not going to be using drugs and alcohol. You're not going to be having sex, but these aren't rules. It's just what the mind understands as wise decision making. And you're going to need to put your mind in some of these various situations to challenge it to see if there's any craving there. Maybe there's some residual underlying craving that the mind doesn't see. It's kind of like there's dust in the corners and you can't really see it until you get really up close with it. So this is some of the things you can do to kind of flush that out a bit.
Okay, so I think I may have maybe asked the question incorrectly. So I'll go to say a massage place, and I don't have a craving for the massage in the moment, but then I'll go or not go. But say I'm in the massage place, then I start to feel good, right? Because now the body's being touched. I think that's when the craving begins, not the actual walking in. I can kind of take that or leave it depending, on time or what's going on that day. But I think once I get, the feeling, the sensation on the body, that's when I can see, the cravings maybe start to develop. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, this is what you're going to need to do. And it's going to sound a little bit odd and you're going to need to be skillful when you do it. Is you're going to need to go in and maybe schedule or purchase a 30-minute or 1-hour massage. And Thailand's a great place to do this because they're so inexpensive. And when you're in the massage and you're 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, and you're starting to feel that sensation of the pleasant feelings coming in, you're going to need to let the therapist know, I'm so sorry, I need to go. Something has come up and I need to leave. And you're going to need to cut off in the middle of your massage. You're going to need to just kind of be like, all right, I'm not attached to the money. I'm not attached to the massage. I'm just going to leave, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, what have you. And you'll need to be skillful when you do it so that the person understands. I'm sure here in Thailand, they will understand. And you just excuse yourself and you leave. And this is your mind cutting off and letting go and not allowing it to indulge in those conditioned pleasant feelings. Eventually, if you do this a few times, you'll be able to just get a massage no problem, and you won't have conditioned pleasant feelings while you're there. So this will ultimately get you to the point where you won't need to do this kind of thing. Another way you can do it, if you're not interested in completely walking away from the massage, is you can excuse yourself to get up and go to the bathroom. And that way you can actually do this multiple times throughout the massage, where you're 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes into it, you're noticing the pleasant feelings. You say, excuse me, so I'm so sorry, I need to go to the bathroom. And now maybe all you do is you go in there and wash your hands, because you're not lying, right? You need to go to the bathroom, you wash your hands. And now that's allowed your mind to calm down, because you've cut off and cut off and cut off. And now you come back into the massage within 3 to 5 minutes, 10 minutes later. And now you lay down again. And then as they're massaging, if the pleasant feelings are coming up, excuse yourself again. And you do this repeatedly, because each time you're getting up and leaving to go wash your hands, that's your mind applying right effort to cut off and let go of the conditioned pleasant feelings that are arising.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So Pat's been really patient there with his hand up. So Pat, if you'd like to read this next one, this is chapter 36. Oh, you disappeared. There you are. All right.
There is no you there. Then, Bahia, when for you there will be only the seen in reference to the seen, only the heard in reference to the heard, only the sensed in reference to the sensed, only the recognized in reference to the recognized. Then, Bahia, there is no you in connection with that. When there is no you in connection with that, there is no you there. When there is no you there, you are neither here nor between the two. This just is the end of stress. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So this is the Buddha helping you to be able to see that there is no self. There's no you there. That's what his exact words are. There's no you there, because the unenlightened mind with its personal existence view will cling to a you. And what the mind will do is when somebody's talking about something, you will insert yourself into whatever they're talking about. That's why the Buddha is saying that only the seen in reference to the seen, only the heard in reference to the heard, and only the sensed in reference to the sensed. That you would like to get to the point where you're not inserting yourself with quotes, right? Yourself into this whole story that somebody's talking about, or this situation, or this disrespect. Someone's being disrespectful to me. That's the personal existence view. You're inserting yourself into this instead of like, no, it's just disrespectful speech. That's all it is. It's not that they're being disrespectful to me. It's that they're just choosing to say things that are disrespectful, and you don't insert yourself into this, because that's where your mind is going to experience the discontentedness. Where if you just understand that this is just contact coming through the ears, where you're hearing sounds, and it's just somebody choosing to speak in a certain way. So this will help you to not cling to any perception that there is an I here. That's what the Buddha is teaching you. It's not to cling to the idea that there is an I, because your mind's going to keep wanting to insert yourself into each one of these kinds of situations where you're hearing certain things, people are saying certain things, people are talking about things, and your mind's going to keep wanting to insert this being who you are into that mentally, where now your mind becomes agitated or frustrated in those situations. So the Buddha is explaining, when you get rid of this, when there is no you there, that's the end of stress, because now your mind isn't going to become discontent based in the personal existence view. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Just a short little discourse where the Buddha is helping you to understand to not insert this idea of a self into interactions that you're having. Okay, maybe Vibhav, go ahead, sir.
So in this context, is the recognition of something you recognize and you're not recognizing as yourself, or is something as you're seeing something saying, oh, this is a mental object, or this is a feeling, and you're not associating yourself with that? Is that what the recognizes?
Yeah, you can think of it like that, but all these things that you experience, just training your mind to not put yourself in there. So like maybe your wife walks through the living room and you're on the sofa and you walk by, or I'm sorry, she walks by, and maybe she looks over towards you and you look at her face and you notice that her face doesn't look happy. It doesn't look peaceful. And now instead of saying, oh, she's looking at me in a grumpy way, instead it's just the recognized. You're just recognizing that her face appears to look a certain way. Don't assign any kind of extra stuff to it that she's looking at you in a grumpy and angrily way. It's just, okay, well, her face looks like that. That's what you're recognizing. So it's just the recognize in reference to the recognize. Don't insert yourself into that when she just walks by with a certain appearance on her face.
Yeah, so I guess I've asked this question before, and I think the challenges that I've had generally is in reference to the herd. When somebody is saying something and you're just taking it at face value, you assume that they are saying the truth. Is like for a lot of things, like it's not the case, right? There may be, you understand that maybe later you understand that's not the case, that they were lying or they were not being fully truthful, or maybe just by they also, like I say some things to you sometimes that I have a bad memory of, and I say things, oh, like we were 14, we were looking for 14, but there's actually 9 people that were supposed to go somewhere. So if you don't know what the other person is saying is the real truth, then how do you just take it at face value and say, okay, they must be what is saying they're right, and then do your actions accordingly, because you could just be doing the wrong. You could end up doing the wrong action, but if you just trust what the other person is saying, the right thing.
That's where you always make sure that you're paying careful attention to your decisions, and you only make decisions based on truth that you've uncovered. This is where the Buddha teaches that just to get to the first stage of enlightenment, there's nothing that you will make decisions on that can't be relied upon. So if somebody says something and you hear what they say and you think that maybe they're not being truthful, then you need to ask multiple questions from different angles in order to be able to uncover what is the truth here. And then if you can make a decision based on that, then you make a decision if you're confident that you've discovered the truth. But if there's no discovery of truth and you need to step back from the conversation and think about it before you make a decision, then do that. So you're never interested in hastily making decisions. That's what the mind's going to do with this craving, desire, attachment, is it's going to want to hastily make decisions. But if you can take your time, think through your decisions, and then base your decisions in wisdom, that's what's going to produce wholesome results for you. So if you're talking with someone at work and you think that they're not being truthful to you, you can step back from that conversation, think about it, try to gather information from other places, and even ask this person multiple questions from different angles until you get confident that you've uncovered the truth. And now you can feel confident in making that decision, that you can rely upon the information that you have, and you're not just hastily making decisions. This is why you need to slow the mind down in order to be comfortable to take your time in making decisions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere, so we'll move to the next one, which is chapter 37. And it looks like Leo would like to read this one as well. And Keely actually volunteered as well. So let's go with her, Leo.
Thank you, Teacher David. With the elimination of excitement comes the complete destruction of discontentedness. Puna, there are forms recognizable by the eye that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tempting. If a monk does not seek excitement in them, does not welcome them, and does not remain holding to them, excitement is established in him. With the elimination of excitement, Puna, there is the elimination of discontentedness, I say. There are puna, sounds recognizable by the ear, odors recognizable by the nose, flavors recognizable by the tongue, physical objects recognizable by the body, mental objects recognizable by the mind that are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, tempting. If a monk does not seek excitement in them, does not welcome them, and does not remain holding to them, excitement is eliminated in him. With the elimination of excitement, puna, there is the elimination of discontentedness. I say, that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Keely. So when the Buddha is talking about the elimination of excitement here, he's talking about conditioned pleasant feelings. That this is one of the real secrets, quote unquote secrets, of the path to enlightenment. There are no secrets on the path to enlightenment, but there's something that you really need to focus in on here, which is the conditioned pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. It's very intuitive to think about eliminating anger, sadness, sorrow, grief, guilt, shame, fear, things like this. That's very intuitive, stress and anxiety. But the idea of eliminating excitement and happiness, elation and thrill, euphoria, that sounds kind of odd to most people, because that's what they live their life for, is they're chasing after things in order to get to that happiness. And then they feel so happy, yay! But they don't see the other side of that, that when that thing no longer exists, they end up in the painful feelings. So you need to be willing to let go of this temporary happiness in order to be able to get to the permanent happiness, the permanent joy. So that's why the Buddha is saying here that there are forms recognizable by the eye, there's sounds recognizable by the ear, there's odors recognizable by the nose, there's flavors recognizable by the tongue, there's physical objects that are recognizable by the body, and there's mental objects that are recognizable by the mind. And these things are desirable, lovely, agreeable, pleasing, sensually enticing, and tempting. But if you welcome those things, if you excite in them, and you welcome them in, and you remain holding to them, then you're going to experience this conditioned excitement. And now, when that thing is no longer there because it's impermanent, your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So if you're interested in eliminating the painful feelings of the mind, you need to be able to understand that the pleasant feelings, those conditioned pleasant feelings, are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones, so that you're willing to let go of this temporary excitement in order to get to the permanent peace and the permanent joy, the permanent happiness. So that's what the Buddha is explaining here, that with the elimination of this conditioned pleasant feelings, then there is elimination of all discontentedness in the mind. You need to turn your mind away from the conditioned pleasant feelings. And just like with all the discontentedness, there's bodily sensations that are associated with the arising of discontentedness. That's the early warning system alerting you that you're about to become discontent so that you can cut off and let go, restraining the mind. With something like anger, it's going to be tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is the early warning system that a painful feeling like anger or frustration is arising. Well, the pleasant feelings have bodily sensations too, and you need to be alerted to those with your mindfulness so you can cut off and let go. Some people call these warm fuzzies when you feel that tingling across your shoulders, up the back of your neck and over your skull. That's the bodily sensations associated with a conditioned pleasant feeling that is about to arise. And you would like to cut that off and let it go. That's what we were talking about with Kristen related to the massage. When you're noticing that, you've got to cut that off. And that's why I mentioned going to the bathroom or ending the massage or something of that nature. You'd like to cut off and let go. That way you're not welcoming in these conditioned pleasant feelings. That's what the Buddha is teaching you. And if you can do that more and more, cluing into those bodily sensations with the pleasant feelings, then you're getting closer and closer to enlightenment here. Those conditioned pleasant feelings and the bodily sensations associated with them, they're harder to spot because the mind really enjoys those. It really wants those. Those tingling across the shoulders, it's really light. It's like little tingling across your shoulders, and the mind almost doesn't even pay attention to it because it feels so good. And the mind isn't intuitively interested in letting go of these pleasant feelings. So you need to really see very clearly how when your mind gets these pleasant feelings, the painful one's waiting for you right around the corner. So if you get so excited with this brand new job, well, when that job is over, you'll be angry or frustrated. Or if you get some other object, if you get a brand new phone and you get so excited about it, well, when it breaks or it's stolen or you lost it, you're going to get angry or frustrated. So you need to be able to clue into those bodily sensations with the arising of conditioned pleasant feelings and cut that off and let it go as soon as possible. So you turning your mind away from the temporary pleasure so that you can get to the permanent joy, the permanent happiness, the unconditioned happiness. Because this excitement, it can only occur when a certain condition is met. And you're trying to train the mind, no, you're not going to get excited just when you get your cupcake. You're not going to get excited just when you get your massage. You're going to get to the point where you can be happy and joyful, whether you're getting a massage or not, whether you're getting your cupcake or not. You can just be completely peaceful and joyful and happy all the time. But if you're not willing to let go of the temporary happiness, you'll never get to the permanent happiness, the unconditioned happiness. So let me know what questions you guys have here, where the Buddha is talking about eliminating conditioned pleasant feelings. That's how you get to the destruction of all discontentedness. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So let's go to the next one, which is 38. Is there someone that would like to read this one? Okay, we've got a bunch of hands. We'll go with the new person, which is Judy. Not new, but a new reader.
Okay. Liberation of the destruction of craving. On seeing a form with the eye, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He is not averse to it if it is unpleasing. He resides with mindfulness of the body established with an immeasurable mind, and he understands as it is actually the liberation of mind and liberation of by wisdom, wherein those evil, unwholesome states are eliminated without remainder. Having thus abandoned favoring and opposing whatever feeling he feels, whether pleasant or painful, or neither painful nor pleasant, he does not seek excitement in that feeling, welcome it, or remain holding to it. As he does not do so, excitement in feelings is eliminated in him. With the elimination of his excitement comes elimination of clinging. With the elimination of clinging, elimination of existence. With the elimination of existence, elimination of birth. With the elimination of birth, aging and death, sorrow, pain, grief, displeasure, and despair is eliminated. Such is the elimination of this whole mass of discontentedness. On hearing a sound with the ear, on smelling an odor with the nose, on tasting a flavor with the tongue, on touching a physical object with the body, on recognizing a mental object with the mind, he does not crave after it if it is pleasing. He does not become averse to it if it is unpleasing. With the elimination of his excitement comes elimination of clinging. With the elimination of clinging, elimination of existence. With the elimination of existence, the elimination of birth. With elimination of birth, aging and death, sorrow, grief, pain, displeasure, and despair is eliminated. Such is the elimination of this whole mass of discontentedness. Monks, remember this of mind. Remember this discourse of mind briefly as liberation of the destruction of craving.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
So this is what we were just talking about in that previous discourse, where you need to be able to have this mindfulness of the body, right? That you're aware of those bodily sensations that are coming up associated with the conditioned pleasant feelings, and then restrain the mind. Don't welcome it. Don't invite that in, because that's what's going to actually lead to the complete destruction of discontentedness, where you've dismantled this continuous cycle that the mind is stuck in over and over and over again. Some of you guys haven't studied this yet. Some of you have, but what the Buddha is referencing here is dependent origination. For those of you guys that have studied it, you probably recognize it. So by eliminating the craving and clinging of the mind, wanting to get this pleasure through this conditioned feeling, you will eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing discontentedness, and also the causes and conditions that are producing rebirth over and over and over again. So this is exactly what we were just describing with a little bit of the cycle of rebirth here with dependent origination described. For those of you guys that haven't studied dependent origination, we're going to do that in volume 5 when we get to volume 5. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this discourse. This is the Buddha talking about eliminating and destroying the craving that is causing these discontent feelings by restraining the mind, paying attention to those bodily sensations and cutting off and letting go. Okay, I don't see any questions. Judy, your hand's still up. Is that from reading or do you have a question? No? Okay, so I'll go on to the next one then. All right, so now we've got chapter 39. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, looks like Vibhav. Go ahead, sir.
The carrier of the burden. Monks, I will teach you the burden, the carrier of the burden, the taking up of the burden. Listen to that. And what, monks, is the burden? It should be said, the 5 aggregates subject to clinging. What 5? The form aggregate subject to clinging. The feeling aggregate subject to clinging. The perception aggregate subject to clinging. The volitional formations, choices, decisions, aggregate subject to clinging. The consciousness aggregate subject to clinging. This is called the burden. And what, monks, is the carrier of the burden? It should be said that the person, this venerable one of such name and clan, this is called the carrier of the burden. And what, monks, is the taking up of the burden? This is craving that leads to renewed existence, accompanied by excitement and desire, seeking excitement here and there. That is, craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for extermination. This is called the taking up of the burden. Thank you.
Okay, so the Buddha describes craving, desire, attachment as a burden, because it's a real burden to go out into the world with craving, desire, attachment on your shoulders, where the mind is longing, yearning, and chasing after things. You'll go out in your day, and if your cravings, desires, attachments are getting fulfilled, you'll feel like, yes, this is the best day ever. But if you go out into the world and your cravings, desires, attachments aren't getting fulfilled, you're having painful feelings, and you're like, oh, this was such a horrible day. That's the burden that the mind's carrying around. And that's why you feel exhausted when you get home, that you maybe feel like you have these heavy weights on your feet or these heavy weights on your shoulders. So carrying this burden around is the mind's craving, desire, attachment. The mind is holding on to this burden. So the burden itself is these 5 aggregates. That's what the Buddha is describing, because continually being reborn over and over and over again, taking up of this life, this is the burden that you're now carrying around, this physical form, these feelings, these perceptions, the volitional formations, and the consciousness. Your mind clinging to this, wanting to continue on and on and on and on and on. That's the burden. The carrier of the burden is this person, because there's the body and there's the mind. That's what the 5 aggregates are describing, is the body and the mind. But the combination of these 2 things, that's the person. So the person is the carrier of the burden. And then the taking up of the burden is that the mind continues to long and yearn for this renewed existence, that it continues to find excitement and desire, seeking excitement here and there, and all these external things. The mind's craving for sensual pleasures, it's craving for existence, or it's craving for non-existence or extermination. So that's the taking up of the burden, where there's this longing, yearning, and craving in the mind. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're laying down the burden. You're letting go of all that stuff so that the mind doesn't have to keep chasing over and over and over again. So looking at this as the burden is really helpful for you. But again, not in a pessimistic way. But if you think about all the time that you spend combing your hair, brushing your teeth, getting a haircut, cleaning the stuff out of your eyes, cutting your fingernails, cutting your toenails, putting on deodorant, washing this body, brushing your teeth. You know, we could just go on and on and on and on. I mean, you spend a lot of time just caring for these 5 aggregates and taking care of these 5 aggregates. That's the burden that we're walking around with. But you can lay that down. And that's what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to do, is lay down this craving for continued existence, but also eliminating the craving for non-existence too, where you're in the middle, where you can be content and peaceful in the present moment with this existence, that you're not craving to continue it. You understand that it's impermanent, but you're not craving to die either, right? That you're just content and peaceful in the present moment. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So we'll go to the last chapter for today. This is chapter 40. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Okay, looks like Vibhav rose his hand again. Go ahead, sir.
So I just had a question. I can read the chapter, but I did have a question on perception.
Okay.
So we've talked about this before as well, but perception is when you're making an opinion about something. You're perceiving that a person is behaving a certain way because they have some like you could say, like sometimes you could say, like, I think this person could be a manager or is a director, but they could just be a tech lead or something, or you could think that the person might be married or they might be single, and you have this perception. And you generally have perceptions about multiple things, but you don't have to really hold on to them. You can it's just basically, I guess it is okay to have a perception but not hold on to it, right? Because it's hard. I don't know if it's hard or not, but generally when you talked about the there is no you there, you're basically sensing something, or you're seeing something, you're recognizing something, and you are kind of forming a perception about what somebody's doing. Like you took my wife's example where she might have something on her face, like a expression on her face, where there might be, it might be some expression that they have. I could perceive it as either because of me, or I could perceive it that she might be going through something in a work or something, and that's what might be causing her. But there is a perception there that something is happening. That's why she has a expression on her face that is not happy, right, or not content. So it's okay to have the perception, right, to say, okay, that something might be going on, but not be attached to it, because it could clearly be something I do not understand.
Right. You're not going to base any decisions off of that. So it might be an opinion or view. It's like, maybe she's having some difficulties here, but you're not going to start basing decisions about future outcomes for your life or her life based on a perception. So if you're clinging to a perception, then it may or may not be true, because a perception is a view or opinion that may or may not be true. And an individual who's interested in enlightenment wouldn't base any decisions on a perception. If they have a view or opinion and they're getting ready to make a decision about something that involves that, they're going to be able to seek information through asking questions to make sure they know the truth, that it's no longer a perception, that they know the truth about what is actually occurring. So as a enlightened being, you will have perceptions, but you won't allow the mind to cling to those, and you won't base any decisions on those. Instead, you will ask questions to be able to clarify what is true reality, so that then you can make decisions based on that.
And what is the person? So, like my wife example, where you said she has some expression on her face, and maybe I can give this example. Yesterday, she was saying that in her school somebody's annoying her, or some students annoying her, irritating her. And so I asked the question: Is it really possible for somebody to annoy you? And she kept insisting, yes. I mean, and at some point we just stopped discussing about it. But like she really kept insisting, yes, it is possible. And she kept saying, yes, it is. And I asked multiple times, but she kept insisting that it is somebody else who's annoying me. So in that case, I kind of know that she understands the truth about these things, because she's been discussing with you as well. But she still keeps holding on to the fact, or at least to me, she tries to show that somebody else it is possible for somebody else to annoy you. And so am I forming a perception about the fact that she lying about this, or not speaking the truth about this?
So she's not lying, but instead that's what her mind truly thinks, because she hasn't established right view yet. So if you're looking at it, based on what you're sharing with me, you can know with 100% certainty that she doesn't know the truth, but she's speaking as if this is the truth. But that's just because of her lack of wisdom in the mind, that she hasn't penetrated into the Four Noble Truths to establish right view. So that's not a perception. That is, you have tangible evidence right in front of you that this person is lacking that wisdom to be able to see that it's their own mind that's causing the annoyment, not the person at her school.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Is there someone who would like to read this chapter?
I can read it because nobody else is.
Okay, I think they're all just going to let you read it, Vibhav. Go ahead.
Elimination of craving is called the laying down the burden. And what monks is the laying down of the burden? It is the remainderless fading away and elimination of the same craving, the giving up and letting go of it, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. This is called the laying down of the burden. This is what the perfectly enlightened one said. Having said this, the fortunate one, the teacher, further said this. The five aggregates are truly burdens. The burden carrier is the person. Taking up the burden is discontentedness in the world. Laying the burden down is joyful. Having laid the heavy burden down without taking up another burden, having taken out craving from its food, one is free from hunger, fully extinguished. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vibhav. So this is what we were just talking about previously. This is just a continuation of that, where now the Buddha is talking about laying down this burden, right? That's what you're looking to get rid of, is you're looking to eliminate the cravings, desires, attachments, giving it up, letting it go, freedom from it, non-reliance on it. Because as long as your mind has that, then there's still this burden that the mind's carrying around. So the five aggregates are the burden. That's the burden that the mind has taken up. And the carrier of this burden is the person. When you take up this burden, it's going to produce discontentedness in the mind and throughout the world. But then when you lay down this burden of eliminating the craving, desire, attachment, that's where the joyfulness comes in, because your mind is not longing, yearning for that one particular thing. You can only be happy if you get that thing. But when you lay that down, now you can be happy no matter what. Right? So the Buddha is talking about that here, getting fully extinguished, where you've laid down this entire burden, having taken it out of its root. The root is inside the mind. And now the mind becomes free from that, and the mind can be fully extinguished. So let me know if you guys have questions on this particular chapter.
I had a question on the second sentence.
Okay.
So, I like how it's very framed, but if you could explain it better, remainderless fading away and elimination of that same craving.
Yeah.
So just that if you could more insight into that statement.
Yeah, what this remainderless fading away is that there is no more remainder, that it's completely exhausted. And then same thing here with the elimination, that it's completely destroyed, that there's not even just a little tinge of a craving, because you'll get to the point where your mindfulness is so well developed that you can just see this little tint, ting, the mind just eat, and then you pull it right back, right? Where the strong cravings early on in your life, or early on in your development on the path to enlightenment, you can see those really strong cravings usually pretty easily. But by the time you're peeling away a lot of this and develop your mindfulness, you can see even the slightest little that the mind has. And that's what you would like to ultimately get to, is where there's no remainder whatsoever, that there's not even the slightest residual of craving. There's not even one speck of dust in the corner of the mind, that it's completely liberated from the taints. That's what it means to have the remainderless fading away, that it's completely destroyed out of the mind, and there's not even the slightest little tinge of craving.
So this is basically saying over time this is fading away. So and at some point in time there is no remainder, and then it's eliminated.
That's when it's eliminated. Yeah, when there's not even the slightest little tinge of craving. That's when the mind is fully eliminated its craving, and that's where it's laid down the burden. If it has even the slightest little tinge, then the burden hasn't been laid down yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere. So I'll just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to grow and develop on the path to enlightenment. We're actually going to be finishing up volume 2 next week, because we just finished chapter 40. I'm sorry. Yeah, we just finished chapter 40. So that means next week we're going to go from 41 to 51 because the book ends at chapter 51. So we're going to have one extra chapter that we don't typically have. And you're going to see some of these books, they will end on like the 7th or the 8th or the 9th or maybe even the 6th chapter. So there's some weeks that are going to be short and some we're going to have just one extra, or 2 extra, 3 extra chapters like that. So you can read all the way to the end of this book. And then the following week, we're going to be starting with volume 3. So thank you all for those of you guys that read. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for just participating in the class by just even attentively listening and taking in the teachings of the Buddha and choosing to think about them and implement them into your life. Next week, like I mentioned, we're going to be in those last 11 chapters of this book, and then we're going to continue on from there. Tomorrow in the group learning program, I'm going to be doing a talk on the 4 stages of enlightenment and the 10 fetters. So if you'd like to get a refresher on that kind of thing, you're welcome to attend tomorrow on Sunday, which is Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Thai time or 9 p.m. And you can attend by live stream or you can attend at the temple, where I'm going to be talking about the 4 stages in depth. And then the 10 fetters, I'm going to be going into those in more depth than I would typically go into them in a given class. And then, of course, we have our Sunday night meditation at the classroom for each Sunday at the temple. And then all next week, I have a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment course that you guys are welcome to attend as well if you're here in Chiang Mai or if you'd like to attend online. So thank you all for joining, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.